flux capacitor fluxing. I look like an explosion in some kind of sweet shop. Oh, do you remember Mingles? Oh, we always talk about Mingles at Christmas. Can't get them anymore.
Okay.
Okay, cheers. Perfect.
Cheers. Cheers.
I think it just adds to the sort of fun and excitement and a little bit of terror on my part.
From the 1st of November, it's completely cool to play the Christmas music.
Sorry, I was getting the lipstick off.
We are on. It's like the plane. It's taxiing. It's getting ready for takeoff. And why hold it off? Why not open yourself up to joy?
You might have, you never know. And lost it. Yeah.
Open your heart to happiness and put on the Christmas music. Welcome, everybody, to the Bakery Bears video show featuring my favourite colourways. Yes.
Yes, I had to think then. Was it? Is it? Did I do that?
Yes,
I did do that.
Now look, what a day. Way back in 2020, Kay conceived my favourite colourways, and it's gone on to become probably one of our favourite. Yeah, I would say definitely.
A viewer favourite.
Oh, is that one of our favourites too?
Oh, absolutely. We love doing it. I love doing it. I get to knit with all this lovely yarn.
Yes.
It's a winner.
And also as well, what's so lovely is, and this is the reason why it's probably become one of our favourites, is we know how much so many of you love it too.
Yeah.
Now, today is actually the last episode of my favourite colourways. What a journey it's been. It's going to be 21 shows in total that Kay's done since 2020. And, you know, it's been just so lovely seeing you dive back in to those old colourways.
Yeah.
And I know you've started to, like, filter in, you know, some new stuff
done lots of new stuff.
Which has been cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, going back over the old stuff has just been marvellous. Now, today, she's going to go out in some style. And that's because no matter how much you might not want it to be so, and I do want it to be so, we're getting close to Christmas.
We are.
Oh, yes. It's November.
It's November, everybody.
Can you believe it?
Come on. We made it through October.
What I love about the colourways today is they're seasonal in so many senses. Wait till you see them. Because if you look at these colourways with your sort of Christmas tinted glasses, they look as festive as can be.
Yeah.
But if you also look through them with your sort of autumnal heading into winter glasses, they're also
it works.
Blooming perfection.
Absolutely.
It's so I think my favourite of the two, and I did sort of gasp slightly when you'll see it later on.
You will. I'm knitting with it, so you will see it.
She drops in some dye into the pot, and it's like an explosion of colour.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much I went, oh. I had to chop it out of the edit.
It's a bright one. It's one of the colours. They're both actually bright and fun.
Yes.
But one of them particularly is very festively bright.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now look.
Like me.
Yes.
This is supposed to be a festive jumper, right? It was in the festive section. I didn't knit it. But I don't know. I look like I should be, I don't know, in some kind of weird Willy Wonka factory, I think.
Now look, I have a new rule. And it's taken many years in the making. And that is this. From the 1st of November, it's completely cool to play the Christmas music. Look.
He's a transformed man.
I'm a transformed man. We wait.
It used to be banned until like the 1st of December.
We wait all year for this. And there is nothing more joyful than Christmas music.
Oh.
And as soon as you hit November, we are on. It's like the plane. It's taxiing. It's getting ready for takeoff. And why hold it off? Why
Everybody,
not open yourself up to
everybody's
joy.
saying, "Oh, I've been listening to it since August or something."
But there will be other people saying, "Oh no."
Yeah, there will.
Because I was with you. I was with you all the way.
Yeah.
You think, "Oh no. If I start too early, I'll peak too early." You won't.
But the thing is, it's gone in a second, isn't it? I think Christmas.
It is.
Once you get into December, you get embroiled in all of the busyness and all of the stuff going on, and it's over before you know it. So, embrace it in November. That's what we say. And we were listening to. I've got I don't know where I found it. It's an Apple Music thing, and it's called Christmas Crooners.
Yes.
And there's like 90 odd tracks on
Tremendous.
it, and it's just full of everyone. Everyone is on it singing festive goodness.
Yes.
It's amazing.
I'll make a prediction. This year, I think I'm going to be loving some Legend.
Oh.
John Legend.
John Legend. Yeah,
Yes.
John Legend's on that said
Now,
playlist.
we started listening to, I can't remember the album, I'll no doubt wax lyrical about it in shows as we get closer to Christmas. But we sort of found it sort of late on last year. It was a John Legend Christmas album, and it's just tremendous.
Oh, that man can sing.
He really can sing. I mean, just perfection. But he was on that album.
He was on the one we were listening to yesterday.
Yes.
It's just lovely. There's Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby and John
Tremendous.
Legend and Johnny Mathis.
Tremendous.
Yeah.
Open your heart to happiness and put on the Christmas music. That's what I say. Now,
Did
look,
you just make that up?
I did.
It sounded like you'd written that or something.
No,
some kind of...
you may check my notes.
some kind of strap line for some festive product.
No.
You should be marketing. That's what you should do.
Now, look, speaking of something legendary, I think it was January this year that Kay was struck by the most amazing design that I have ever had the privilege of watching take flight. As I think you all may know, Kay adores blankets.
Just a little bit.
And you can sort of see why this blanket design, or how this blanket design came about. Because in January, we're often surrounded by minis, aren't we?
Yeah.
And Kay...
Not cars, not the cars.
Yeah, although...
That would be lovely.
Sort of quite fun.
When I was
It's
younger...
the self-preservation.
when I was younger, when I was like dreaming about cars...
Yes.
If I ever did that...
I
wanted a mini Rose.
Yes.
It's one of the old-fashioned minis, and it was called a Rose, and it had like, I think the roof was pink.
Yeah.
Oh.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, didn't get one.
So minis quite often come in 20-gram little skeins, don't they? And so it makes total sense that this design features 24 20-gram minis. It is by far the most striking blanket design you have ever created.
Is it?
It's called a quadrophenia.
Quadrophenia.
And this is it. I mean, just look at it. Oh my goodness.
Yes, quadrophenia. So this blanket, I've got 2 samples. In fact, I've got 3 samples here to show you today. The inspiration for this blanket came about from 2 places. One was the idea of using mini skeins, as Dan's already said. But the other is, for ages, I've wanted to create something using triangles. I've just always been fascinated by triangles and how they fit together and what shapes you can make. And I just love the shape. And it also makes me think of the pyramids in Egypt as well.
Yes, and look at the picture. Look at the picture. Oh my goodness. When you look at it, it looks like a pyramid.
It ended up, and this was completely by chance, when you look down on the blanket, it does actually look like you're looking down on the top of the pyramids.
Yes.
And if you did this, I was thinking if you made it actually in all shades of golds and creams.
You'd have to do 3.
And sort of browns.
Big one, a medium, and a small one.
Yeah, it would actually look exactly like the pyramids. So yeah, I melded those 2 things together. My love of the triangles and just thinking about how I could use that shape, and also, using up your mini skeins. So I'll show you. You've already seen pictures, but I mean, it's different seeing it actually in the flesh.
Absolutely.
So this is the one that I knitted. So if you excuse the folding line, it's been folded for many months because I've had this waiting in the wings.
It's the quadrants I love.
Yeah.
Look at them.
It's knitting.
Look at them.
It's knitting 4 quadrants. Yeah, so it actually does make it really portable. That's one of the great things. So you knit it in 4 pieces. So you've got these 4 triangles, kind of like knitting 4 shawls, if you imagine that. But it's not knit in the same way you would knit a triangular shawl. It's less faffy, I think. But anyway, yeah, so you knit it in these 4 triangles, and then you seam it together along these lines here. Now, don't worry about the seaming. It's honestly really simple. It uses mattress stitch. There's videos within the pattern for the seaming, for just closing up the little centre hole that you get to get that really neat, and then also for weaving in your ends. So there's videos in there covering all of those techniques. But other than that, it is just lovely. It's garter stitch, and then at each transition where you move to a different yarn, you do this little bit of fancy business here that just creates a really nice sort of demarcation between each of the yarns, but also just adds a bit of extra sort of prettiness to it as well. And gives you something to look forward to. I really look forward to getting to the end of that colour so that I could do the little bit of fancy business again.
Shall we show the other one?
So that's, and just saying, I mean, it's a square blanket. I'll just say that it's square, and it's about 42 inches square.
Look.
So it's a really good size.
Room for two who are close.
Yeah, it's a really good size, and obviously depending on your gauge it might come out a bit bigger or a bit smaller. So that was the one I knitted, and then I asked a lovely friend who knits, Nicola, who lives up in Scotland, I asked if she would like to test knit it and also effectively sample knit it, and she thankfully said she would love to. So what I did was I made her up a little advent calendar of yarns. So these are all my yarns that I dyed, all of these yarns that I sent to Nicola. So she opened up a little package every day because I wanted her to experience what it would be like if you were to knit it using an advent calendar. So this one is all random colours. The first one that I showed you, I planned all of those colours in terms of like the first round was all pinks, and then it was peaches, and then yellows, then greens, then blues. So I really liked the idea of doing that. So that's planning the colours. This version is just random, and I'm not sure actually which one I prefer. I love this one. So you can see it's all just random colours. So this is more, I guess, what it would look like if you had an advent calendar of yarns that were random. I know a lot of advent calendars these days tend to be sort of gradients, and I think that would also work perfectly because in each quadrant you've got 6 yarns. You know, if your advent calendar was a gradient, because I think they tend to sort of gradiate through the colours, don't they? So I think that would work really well if it was a gradient. So yeah, this one was the one that Nicola knit. So this one now will be going back to Nicola. I can't wait to send it back to her.
I'll fold it for you. Oh, sorry.
Because I wanted to film tutorials for the techniques, I thought I'll just do a little mini version to do that. So I actually knit this one in DK. The blanket is designed for fingering weight, but you can of course use whatever weight you want to. The idea with the blanket is that the pattern is written in such a way that you can actually maximise the use of your yarn. So I'll tell you how to do that to make sure that you've got very little left over. This is actually all I had left over from my 24 mini skeins, and I think Nicola had a sort of similar amount. So you'll just have very little left over, which I think is brilliant. So you could use DK yarn if you wanted to, and I knit this little mini version. Bryony uses this as just a teddy blanket. So this one just had 3 sections in each quadrant, and I use this to show the seaming. If I show you the back, you can see how neat. And this is DK, so these are obviously a bit bigger than they are on fingering weight. But I did it in DK so that you could really clearly see on the video exactly what I was doing. And I used, for this one actually, I used a yarn, I think this lady's in Scotland as well. All these DKs here were from Ruffles yarns. So she does little DK 20 gram mini skeins. So it's perfect for this, and that's what I use. It's lovely, soft, bouncy yarn, and the colours were all gorgeous. So yeah, that's my third one that Bryony uses as a little teddy blanket. It's
also gorgeous, I think, as a throw, because it looks absolutely stunning.
It looks lovely laid flat when you sort of are looking down.
Well, from every angle, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a great lover of blankets. I am when I'm in bed.
Yeah, you're not one for snuggling. I think it's more of a women thing. I don't know, but yeah.
Probably so. But what I love about this is it's like, oh my goodness, it's like so sort of, wow, look at it from that angle, and like it's striking is the word.
The name Quadrophenia comes from 2 places. One, because there's 4 quadrants, so that's the quad element of it. But when I worked in the bank, the little branch that I first started in, this tiny little branch, one of the customers that used to come in, it was a music shop called Quadrophenia. And the name just always stuck in my head. Now, when I told Dan, I said, I've just got this great name, because I'd always remembered the name of this shop because I just loved the name of it. I didn't understand at the time the significance of why they'd chosen that for a music shop. But when I told Dan, he then explained to me, he said, oh, yeah, is it a Who album?
Yeah. It's a Who album, and it's also
a film.
And the music from the Who album is used in the film.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So, there's that sort of musical connection as well, which was unplanned by me, and I didn't realise. I just liked the sound of it, and it fitted in with the quadrant.
It's a gorgeous blanket.
Yes.
I've witnessed it taking flight all the way through this year.
Yeah.
It's just the most amazing thing to see being knitted.
Yeah, a long time coming. So you can now purchase the blanket.
Yes.
The pattern has been published. You can buy it on Ravelry or Lovecrafts.
And of course, the best place to go find out where you can get it from is our website, and there is a link to the pattern.
Yeah.
That's based on our website, which then sends you either to Lovecrafts or to Ravelry, however you want to buy it, linked in the show notes below.
Yes.
Cool.
So there we go.
So exciting.
Quadrophenia.
My goodness, the excitement's already... I don't know how we're going to better this now.
I know.
I'm going to try, though.
I'm going to try.
Because my goodness, have I got some lovely projects to show you today. Gorgeous colourwork, oh yes.
And I've got 3 new things.
Amazing. So without further ado, I think it's time that I asked Kay Jones, what's on your needles?
Okay, so the first of my 3 new things is a pair of socks for Dan.
Exciting.
And it's a Christmas pair of socks. I thought it was time to start thinking about my Christmas socks, because I don't actually really do any Christmas knitting at all, if I'm honest, but I do try to get a pair of socks for Dan and a pair of socks for Bryony, or at least something for Bryony. But you've got a pair of socks for Bryony this year that are nearly finished, haven't you?
Yes.
So I don't necessarily need to knit some, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the pair of socks for Dan. Now, at first, I thought I was going to use a particular yarn, and I'll quickly show you that, because I've changed my mind, because it wasn't knitting up how I wanted it to knit up. So yeah, I changed it slightly, so I'm doing something different. But I started off, because I bought this yarn recently because it's just so pretty. It's a Sherry Iris yarn. It's just lovely, and I'll use it for something else. And I don't know if this one was one of the ones she put up a picture of, but she'd done some festive yarn anyway, and I thought, oh, go and have a look. And one of them was an elf reference, and it's called Christmas Cheer. And I was like, oh, I might have to get that. And it's gorgeous. It's reds and greens and golds. Perfect. So it's Christmas Cheer from lovely Sherry. Look at the drawings. Her son does these. Aren't they lovely? And it came and it's beautiful. Here it is caked up. It's gorgeous. But unfortunately, when I started knitting it up, it's doing a bit of a pooling thing. Now, this is a completely individual thing. If someone else knitted this up, it might not do this.
Have you cast me on another pair of
Yes,
socks?
I have.
Oh, good. Sorry.
I just wanted to show this quickly.
Okay.
But this is what it was starting to look like. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go with it. But I just couldn't. You know me. This is just an entirely personal thing. This is 72 stitches. It's 2.5mm. If you knit a 64 stitch sock on a different size, it would very likely knit up completely different. So I thought, right, okay, I'm not going to dwell on this. I'm just going to use that yarn for something else, and I'll cast on a different yarn for Dan. So this is what I'm knitting, and it's fabulous. So this yarn, I bought it sometime this year, or maybe the back end of last year actually. So I've had it in my stash a while, and I saw it and I thought, oh, I'm going to use that. And it's actually a Stylecraft yarn. It's Head Over Heels, which is their sock yarn, and this came part of like a 4-pack of festive yarn. You can still buy the 4-pack of yarn. I've checked on Wool Warehouse, and in fact it was discounted, I think, at the minute. There was 3 that were sort of striped and 1 solid, a red solid. This is one of the sort of stripy ones, and it's called Cupid. Head Over Heels. Look at the little robin. And that's the shade number, and it's Cupid. And it's a 75-25, kind of like your Opal or your Regia. And I hadn't actually knit socks with this yarn before. And it's knitting up brilliantly. You know, when I saw it on the picture, I thought, well, that looks fun. There it is in the cake.
So that's the Cupid yarn?
This is Cupid.
I mean, it's gorgeous.
It's fabulous.
All I can hear in my head is "Stupid Cupid, stop picking on me."
Oh, right.
Who sang that song? I have no idea.
Who sang it?
Please, so many of you are going to know. Please do comment in the show notes below.
But look how it's knitting up. How fun is that? And look what I've done. Can you see? Here, it's ribbed. So, you know Dan and ribbed socks and me and knitting ribbed socks. I thought, do you know what? I really want to do him some ribbed socks because he just loves them and this is Christmas and I just really want to do it. I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something that normally I don't like at all. And I'm only going to put the rib...
It's for a different reason, though. Because you're not putting that on there for decoration.
No.
You're putting that on there for fit.
Practical reasons. Yeah,
If you'd, done half of a design and stuck it on the front and left the back plain...
Yeah.
Then that isn't cricket.
No, I'm not... That's what I'm not keen on. I'm not keen on when you see patterns where it's just on the front of the leg. I don't know, it's just, again, it's a personal thing. I just prefer to have the pattern all the way around the leg, or at least something else going on the back of the leg. Sometimes I've done, like a panel down the front and then something else going on down the back. I've done that a couple of times.
I think there's a difference between a panel down the front, and
the pattern
I've seen
just
designs
stopping,
where
yeah.
The design is on the front two needles, and then the back two needles is just plain knitting. And that to me is like a textured sock with only the texture on the front.
Yeah,
it's just weird.
No, I mean, I just prefer not to do that. Yeah. But anyway, in this instance, it actually is brilliant because it's meaning that I've only got to do rib on the front of the sock and then I get a bit of a break on the back of the leg. And I know I've got to do the rib all the way down the top of the foot, but that's fine because, again, I'm just knitting plain on the bottom of the foot. And I think it'll be great because I've also done a 1x1 rib because I think 1x1 is more sucky in. I don't know if that's true, but it feels like it's more grippy a 1x1. So that's what I've done. I did 18 rounds of 1x1 for the cuff and then continued with the 1x1 on the front of the sock and then just knit plain on the back of the leg. Heel flap and turn, and then now I'm just on the gusset decreases. But I decided with this, I did have one of these little Regia, my first Regia balls, and I thought I'll use that for the heels. But it's too white. When I compare it, can you see how this is more of a sort of slushy snow white and this is a bright white? I thought, I don't like that. And I spent ages thinking, what yarn shall I use? What shall I do? I've not really got anything that matches. And I thought, why don't I just carry on and use the same ball? Let's just be old school and just use one ball of yarn for the whole sock. And that's what I've done. And I think it's brilliant. It means on the front of the sock here, the pattern, it's such a long repeat though, that I don't think you're going to notice that. I think the repeat goes from here all the way down to here, or maybe here. Oh no, maybe, it's huge. It's, the pattern repeat, it's really huge, so I don't think you'll even notice that. It's just so festive. I mean, could there be a more festive looking sock? I don't think so. No. So I'm on the gusset decreases, and I always, when I do the gusset decreases, I don't often actually have a sock to show you that I'm at this point, but I always rearrange my stitches because when you're doing the gusset decreases, the start of the round is the centre of the heel, isn't it? So I rearrange my stitches so that the start of my round is at the centre of the heel. I have done it where I just leave all of the sole stitches and all of the gusset stitches effectively on the back needle and then your instep on the front needle. I didn't really like that for a couple of reasons. One, it's a disproportionate amount of stitches, so your back needle, and still until you sort of get into the decreases, it has quite a lot more stitches than your front needle, and I just find that a bit awkward. But then also you've got to kind of do a little bit more thinking, because the start of your round, if you use that method, the start of your round is like in the middle of your back needle, isn't it? So you've got to remember, right, I'm decreasing here, but then when I get back round here onto this needle, I've got to remember I'm still decreasing there. I don't know, my brain just functions better if I rearrange it like this. So I find that the easiest thing. And then I just rearrange it back again to knit the rest of the foot. It takes seconds to do, it's not a problem. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this sock, and I think they will make great festive socks and be really nice and grippy. So Dan Jones,
yes,
what's on your needles?
I was being completely vain.
Were you?
And I shall tell you why. I was admiring my own stitches.
Oh, look at me.
I'm embarrassed about that.
I'm marvellous.
But then we shouldn't be embarrassed about that.
No.
We should be embarrassed if we're like going up to people and going, look at my stitches, aren't they amazing?
I do that as well.
No, you don't. Because that is being vain. But one of the huge benefits, as I'm sure you know, but some people may not fully grasp this, one of the huge benefits of knitting is, and actually any craft, anything that we put our mind to and we work at something and we get better at it, and then we can look at it and go, well, that's actually loads better. I feel really good about myself. It's good for your mental health. It's so important.
A bit of boosting your confidence.
Small victories.
Yes.
Every one of us should have small victories every day.
Absolutely.
And if we do, then that then sort of breeds positivity in our minds. If your head is full of negativity, then it breeds negativity. And I think that's why knitting, for me, has been such a boon, you know, after coming out of quite a serious illness, and then this being such a huge part of my life, it's definitely enabled me to shed demons, if you like, and it makes me makes me love knitting all the more. Back to the point though, there's nothing more joyful, obviously, than Christmas music, closely followed by perfect. Now, it's wrong of me to say perfect, because it's not perfect.
It's pretty close.
Look right, great English.
Look right.
What I'm aspiring for when I knit colourwork,
what I'm aspiring to.
What I'm aspiring to when I knit colourwork is I want the fabric to just flow. I don't want it, when the colourwork comes in, to get fatter and the stitches to get bigger, and then when the knitting comes in, for the stitches to tighten up. You want it to be flat and even. It needs to be nice and flat and even, like Christmas, deep and crisp and even. Yes. It needs to look lovely all the way through. And for me, that's one of the hardest battles with colourwork. I think even someone who's really good at colourwork and getting a nice flat section with the colourwork in will often be shown up when the plain knitting comes back in again, because the texture of the knitting will change. Would you agree with that, or am I talking complete rubbish? No, not talking rubbish. One of the problems... You often do, but yes, not today. One of the problems I've had is that issue. Well... It's perfect. It's really great. You say it's not perfect, but I... Well, that's lovely that you're saying that. If I'd have bought that in a shop, I would have said that, Brilliant. You know... Yes. I wouldn't have had a problem. I would have thought it was maybe not machine. And since the day I started knitting, that's what I've been aspiring to with colourwork. So to get to that point now, I've worked very hard on sections like this, but to now get to that point where, you know, just look at the stitches here and here. They look the same tension. It's beautiful. It fills me with so much joy. And so, you know, going back to what I started saying at the beginning of this little segment, it is good for my mental health. What's filling me with joy is just the thought that I'm going to wear this. I'm going to wear it forever. Yes. I will wear it literally forever, because this yarn, I think, would last way beyond my lifetime. I'm so happy. It's fantastic, honey. I'm so happy with this. Just it's these segments here, because, you know, historically, you know, thinking Claire Quat and other things that I've done, elements to the Solia design, there was bits like this where on the transition things just didn't quite work. And it's not even blocked, this. I know. You know, that's what's so amazing. I just think when it's blocked, it's going to just be the bee's knees. It's the stacker and it's by the same designer who has designed all of my recent ones. I wish I could pronounce it.
It's fantastic.
The coolest looking name ever.
Kudos to me for choosing these colours.
I'm never going to try and be brilliant at that, because if you've got someone who's good at it already, then I might as well tap into her.
Do you know
knowledge.
what I wish? I wish Let Lopi did a fingering weight version.
Oh yeah.
Don't you? Don't you wish they did like a 4-ply version? But saying that, Dan, you really want to knit a 4-ply, don't you?
Yes, and we know what I'm going to do now.
We do.
I'm going to knit
something like
one of these, but in 4-ply.
Yeah. Dan, the next project Dan's going to knit whenever you finish imminently is we're going to find a tank top that's like a Fair Isle tank top.
Yes.
And I think I'm going to order some Jamesons for it.
Cool.
There's Jamesons and there's Jamesons. There's 2 different Jamesons, but I think it's essentially more or less the same yarn. And it's 4-ply. It's not fingering weight, it's 4-ply, which is slightly thicker than fingering weight. But I wouldn't, that's just going to be fabulous, isn't it? I can't wait.
Now, as I've always said, I'm not even close to an expert with colourwork at all. There'll be loads of you out there who are so much better than me. But still, lots of people have asked me how I approach it, just because I've spent a lot of time trying lots of different techniques, and because of the fact that I've really sort of pushed forward on this and I've seen the value of how important it is to constantly be moving where your yarn is, so you get rid of that yarn dominance, because I really don't like yarn dominance. I think that, a piece of colour work should look as even as it possibly can throughout. So develop this technique which does eliminate the yarn dominance, and I think it's the 15th of November. We filmed a tutorial with Kay's help, because I'm not very good at doing the tutorial thing, but Kay asked the appropriate questions.
I did.
And I was knitting on this, and I show you how I approach knitting colour work.
Does that look like a little butterfly in between my fingers there?
You see, I see a spaceship.
Oh, do you see a spaceship?
I see a whole range of things.
What do you see? What do you see
this
there?
This for me, it's like those cards that they hold up, isn't it?
I can't.
What do you think of this?
Yeah, what is this?
It does. It does.
Ink blot thing. I see a little sort of butterfly.
Definitely.
But you're right. I can also see a spaceship, and maybe I can see a crab as well. I'm not sure. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Loving the design's tremendous. Yep. Like I said, it's the stacker. Knitting it with Let Lopi yarn.
Let Lopi.
And enjoying every stitch.
I couldn't tell you the exact colours, unfortunately.
Because I lost my tickets.
Dan doesn't behave correctly with his tags, but you can see the colours. I don't
appreciate my tickets.
No, you can see what colours they are. If you went to look, you could find them, I'm sure.
Gorgeous project.
Beautiful.
Loving every minute. Self-contained knitter actually is back after a summer break because of the summer of stitching and then Sockoween, and really delve into all my current projects and talk a lot more about what's coming next. So that was really exciting. Kay Jones, what else is on your needles?
Right, so my next thing, I'm actually really loving all 3 of these projects, and when I'm thinking, what shall I work on? I'm like, I want to do that. No, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to work on all of them. But this one, I think, had I not had to do work on other things, I probably would have finished these, but I haven't. So that's a joy because I get to show you. So I don't know where I saw this yarn. I bought this just in between the last show and now. I bought this yarn immediately. I think like the following day I cast it on, because I just love it so much. And Bryony was like, oh, that's really cool. And because I'm always knitting her socks, I just thought I'd do something different with this yarn. So I'm doing her some mitts again, some fingerless mitts, because she absolutely loves her fingerless mitts. And the yarn actually was one of those small sock sets. So I just got 50 grams of the main colour and 20 of the contrast. So I thought, that's perfect for mitts because I'll have plenty. And also I wanted to get them on the needles because it's a Halloweeny sort of themed yarn, and I know we're past that now, but it's all fine, isn't it? Because it actually makes me think of bonfire night as well, and we're not at bonfire night quite yet. So the yarn is from London House Yarns. I love London House Yarns, and I've got still a couple of Harry Potter yarns up there that I'm sort of hoarding, that I haven't used yet. I've knit loads of her yarns. I've done Yule Ball, I've got Diagon Alley up there. But this is the sparkle sock, and it's Hocus Pocus. So I've got 50 grams of the self-striping and then 20 of the contrast. And she didn't have very much of this left. It was all sold out. So the only contrast she had was black. But actually, I'm loving how it looks. So this is the yarn in the little cute skein look. So you can see it's a black background with these vivid sort of Halloween-y stripes. But I do think it's very bonfire nighty with fireworks going up into the night sky as well. And look, I'm nearly finished with the first one. And...
So I was just going to say, I think we spoke about Bonfire Night before, and we were saying how strange it is, burning an effigy of a man on top of a fire. I was thinking about this, and I've done no research on this at all, but if you think about the tradition of the Wicker Man, where... going back to medieval times, we would burn a huge effigy. I just wonder if Bonfire Night is like a sort of derivative of that Wicker Man thing. I really don't know, but I sort of ponder on these things, and I did sort of ponder on it afterwards, thinking how barbaric
we saw an old time team, didn't we, recently, where they built a massive Wicker Man on the beach. It was ginormous, and then they burnt it, and it was quite a windy night, and the flames were like this, and sparks were everywhere, and then it obviously toppled over when it had burnt down some, and it was like this massive thing. It was on the beach, and it was perfectly safe, but it looked kind of fun, I've got to say.
Yes.
It did look kind of fun. But yeah, these are the mitts, and I'm actually doing the same thing on this. These are ribbed. I seem to be into the whole ribbiness at the moment, don't I? So what I've done on the front of it looks so skinny because it's ribbed on the front. I'll put it on my hand in a minute. But yeah, on the front I've got 2x2 ribbing, and then on the back it's just plain. But this is how it knits up, look. This is 56 stitches, so if you were doing a 64 stitch sock, the coloured stripes would be a little bit thinner, I think. But isn't it fun? I love the purple shade. I'll hold it close. Can you see the purple? Oh, isn't that beautiful? I love that purple. So I'll pop it on my hand. I'm nearly done with this one. Which one is this one? And what I did with this, I think the ribbiness just makes them so nice on your hand.
It's so funny actually seeing that makes so much sense, having the ribbing on one side and not on the other.
That's what made me think of doing your socks that way, because I was knitting this and I thought, well, why don't I do that with Dan's socks, and then I won't find it so tedious. Yeah. Only doing it on one side. So this is 2x2 though, because I think 2x2 is lovely for a mitt.
Gosh, that yarn's amazing.
Isn't it lovely? I love it.
What's it called again?
Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
But what I did, because this is a self-striping and I have got a thumb gusset there, I thought to myself, it's a bit like a gusset on a sock, isn't it, when you're knitting with self-striping? I didn't want it to make the stripes disappear by doing the thumb gusset, because there are only a couple of rounds per stripe. I thought, I don't want to lose the stripes over the thumb gusset. So I modified my thumb gusset that I normally use, and I made it a bit shorter so that there's less rounds. I've increased to the same number that I would normally, but I've just made it a bit shorter, and I think it's going to work fine. It seems to, I've still got a gusset over my thumb here, and it's reaching round here in my thumb fine, and there's room, so I think that's going to work fine. And I've kept the striping over the gusset as well, so it works really well. So that's fun, just to do those little tweaks just to make something look the way you want it to.
There's one thing that I was just thinking about this, is it's the whole thumb gusset thing, and because you've had to help me, and you'll have to help me again on the next one. I just need to, it's a bit like turning the heel on a sock.
Yeah, it is a little bit like that.
And it is a sort of skill, isn't it? Because otherwise...
Yeah, it is. It's not as difficult. A thumb gusset is more straightforward than a heel flap and a turn and all of that.
That fills me with...
It's definitely more straightforward. You've just got to make sure I always make sure I pick up stitches over here to close the gap, as you do with your socks. Fingerless mitts for me, and mittens as well, it's the same thing. They've kind of got that socky feel for me. If I'm not really in the mood for doing a full cast on, because you need less stitches for a fingerless mitt generally, then if I'm not in that socky mood generally, fingerless mitts seem to fill that gap because they're just so quick and easy, and you can also play around with patterns on the front of the mitt. If you like doing things like that, you could add in some texture, you could put a lace panel, you could run a cable down there. It's a really great way of just playing around if you want to do that. If you've got a stitch dictionary at home and you're like, I've never done anything with that, cast on a fingerless mitt, and you're not then you're creating something, but you're also having a go at putting a little design on. I think that's really fun. So I'm nearly done with this one. I've just got a few more rounds, and then I'll do the rib at the top in black. I'll use the black for the rib. Then I've just got to do the little thumb, which just takes moments really, and then I've just got the second one to do. But I'm not in any rush for these. She's got a stack of fingerless mitts, but they're just so fun. I just love knitting fingerless mitts. Great gifts as well, really quick.
Talk about the rough with the smooth.
Rough with the smooth, okay,
yes.
Right.
So my next project is my Hadrian's cowl, and just before I start talking about it, I must just say, last episode we obviously concluded Walking the Wall, and I just wanted to thank all of you so much. There's been so many lovely messages that you sent. How many of you have been enjoying it, and also how many of you have been sitting down with partners and watching it with partners and things, and that for me is just perfection. I think that's really, from a very early stage of doing what we do now, we've always aspired to create content like that you told us actually way back in 2018 that we were a lifestyle show. And I think that really then is when we really sort of started to lean into it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what we enjoy, is producing more sort of lifestyle content. So to get those messages from you saying how much you love Walking the Wall, it's really heartwarming. And also, just to say as well, because so many of you are saying how much you're going to miss it, I'll miss it too. But as soon as we start next year's show, I think you'll learn to miss it quite easily, because we're beyond excited about next year's show. It's going to be, it's the biggest production ever that we've done, so just you wait. But I spoke before when I showed you the stacker, and I said how I always aspire when I knit colour work to get a lovely, even gauge right the way through, and how sometimes when the colour work comes in, you start to see fatter stitches. Just like this. Do you see here? Nice and even. Into here. Fatter stitches. Back to nice and even again. Now, part of me is like, oh no. But then the teacher part of me and the learner part of me is like, no, this is brilliant, because this is a learning point, and this is the whole reason why Kay designs these projects for me, because I aspire to be a good fingering weight colourwork knitter. And if I'd done this in Let Lopey, or generally a fatter yarn, I think I'd have been okay. But because I'm using the thinner yarn, that's where your technique's got to be even better. And what I've messed up here is I've been too even in how I'm floating. If I had been more uneven with my floats, I've slipped into habits here. Because it's 2x2, I know exactly what I've done.
Yeah, that kind of colourwork is tricky.
When that comes back again at the top, I know what I'm going to do, and hopefully it'll resolve it. And if it does resolve it, I've then learnt, haven't I, how to resolve this type of knitting with fingering weight yarn. But I'll remember it forever.
I do also think that will block largely that.
It will.
It's not terrible.
I'm sure. It's not terrible, but it's not great. In the words of Julia Child, good but not great. Well, it's Meryl Streep playing the part of Julia Child.
I love that film.
This, as I said, it's the Hadrian's cowl. I've done the temples.
Yeah.
I've done the walls. So that's the bricks in Hadrian's wall. And then now I'm into
look at that.
The parquet flooring. No, it's not parquet.
No. Mosaic.
This is the mosaic flooring. And this section actually comes in twice, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's some intense.
This is a big section.
Yes. Now, what I'm pleased about is I'm pretty happy with the colour work in that section. It feels fairly even to what's come before. It's
lovely.
And,
it looks really nice.
Yeah, and like you say, when it's blocked.
It's great to see it, because I obviously didn't even swatch this. I just just designed it, charted it out, and gave it to Dan. So it's lovely to see it coming together. Look at this at the top.
I love the Sweetheart cowl, but I love this even more.
This is beautiful.
It's a true joy to knit. It really is.
It's so lovely to see that coming together.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
It's great.
Yeah.
The yarn is the Merino Yak.
From Regia.
Which here.
We love for colour work.
Yeah, I mean, it is, if you're wanting to do a bit of colour work with this weight of yarn, I couldn't recommend this more, actually.
Lovely.
It's really tremendous. And I'm using 3.5mm circulars on, is that?
Yes, 3.5 millimetre.
And how long will that cable be?
16 inch.
16 inch, cool.
Yeah, it's just a hat
No
size.
clue.
Yeah. It's all right, darling, you don't need to know because I know.
I'll get there eventually.
Well, you don't need to know, do you? It's not going to...
The other thing that I'm really enjoying about this project is it will constantly be a reminder of this amazing year and this, series that we set out to film. And every time I wear it, it'll sort of make me think of the wall. Well, or it might be you that's wearing it.
Might be me. Well, you could wear it.
Well, I could be.
Why couldn't you wear it?
You should wear it.
Why?
Because you look so great in the Sweetheart cowl. And then I get to look at it on you.
We'll both wear it, shall we? We'll share it.
A bit like the harbour cowl.
Oh, it's over there.
Oh my goodness.
The harbour cowl. I love that cowl so much. I want to knit another one, and actually I've got loads of yarn up here.
I think with items, sometimes you knit them, you create them, and you think, oh, they'll be good for that, they'll be good for this, and they might not for some reason. The yarn might not be quite right, or the design might be quite right. And I think the perfect test for any sort of garment that you have is if you can go out on an adventure in it, go out on a nice long walk with it, and it work, and it be great. That's when you know it's perfect for wearing any time. And you may recall in walking the Dales and also walking the moors, this was my go-to cowl.
Yeah.
It's the absolute business. This is one of Kay's platinum designs. And
the harbour cowl.
Yes. You've actually just finished your 2022 platinum collection.
Yeah.
And I was very bad. I hadn't put up a web page for it. I have now. So,
right.
So the Moordale hat, which I was wearing the last Walking the Wall.
And do you know what? This actually is brilliant because we just sent out an email to all our patrons about the advent calendar design.
We're going to be talking about that at the end of the show.
Okay, I'll mention it then.
Yes.
I'll mention it then. But yeah, this yarn I used is Blacker Yarns and it's Blacker Swan DK. And it's just gorgeous. And all of this, actually, I'll mention this later, but all of this is the same yarn.
Yeah.
I really want to make another one of these. I wear it, Dan wears it. It's soft, it's gorgeous. I love it. I love this yarn.
So that's one of Kay's old platinum collection designs. But each year she does 4. She's just finished the 4th this year. So if you were to become a gold or platinum patron right now, you would, if you were a gold patron, you would immediately have access to 4 designs. And what do you normally charge for a design?
$4. It's about $6, I think.
About $6.
Yeah.
And so for 4 designs, that would be $6, $12, $18, $24.
Yeah.
So for $10, you could actually have 4 designs now, plus get access to all our video content as well. Yeah, and if you're a platinum patron, you have access to all of the platinum patterns that I've ever done. I mean, it might 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I don't know how many I've done now. It's either 20 or 24 patterns. So for $25, you would immediately have access to all of those. It's either 20 or 24 designs straight off. Yeah, including the harbour cowl, which we just showed you. That's why it's called a platinum collection. Exclusive collection of designs, only available in full to platinum patrons. Yeah, yeah. What else is on your needles? So the last thing on my needles is a project using the yarn that I dye in my favourite colourways that you're going to see in a minute. So, there's a blackbird out there, can I just say, and he's eating those berries from the rowan tree. Look at him. He's like having a marvellous time down there. He's like, we have some rowan trees. They're just out of the front there. Outside of our house. And it's because of the year that we've had, I think, or last year. Berries have been just covered. It's not just the rowan trees. No. I've been seeing so many of the gorgeous red berries on the holly bushes and also everywhere. But, you know, we went for a walk, I think it was just yesterday, and I think I said, you know, I hope that they fatten up now.
Yeah, that's the thing with birds,
because you sort of worry about them in the winter.
Because they don't store their food, do they? That's why you should always feed the birds mainly, I think, in the winter.
You're on a dangerous slope, aren't you, if you're worrying about the birds?
Am I?
No, me.
Right. Oh, right.
Hope that little birdie will be okay.
He'll be fine.
What about that robin we saw the other day?
Oh, robins are so friendly, aren't they? Aren't they the friendliest birds? There was a little robin and he was sat on a branch and we just stood there for ages looking at him and he just didn't move at all and he must have been, you know, just there. But they're so friendly. But your mum said to us that there's a robin in their garden that comes...
We had a royal visit.
We did.
Yes, from Nana Wendy and Grandpa Steve.
Yeah.
They came for a visit to see us for a few days.
Yeah.
And as Kay's saying,
went for
it's
a
Grandpa
walk.
Steve
Yeah.
out in the garden in their home, which is a long way from here.
It's a long way from here, yeah.
And he comes out and Steve talks to him.
He does.
And feeds him and everything.
Yeah, Grandpa Steve's got a huge vegetable plot in his garden, fruit and veg, and he's out there every day. And this little robin comes and sees him and talks to him. So the yarn, you're going to see the yarn that I'm about to dye up. This is the actual yarn that I dye up. And I literally cast it on the day that I dyed it up.
That's how excited she was.
Got it dry, wound it, cast it on, done.
There was smoke coming off those needles.
There really was. So the two yarns that I dyed this time, there's a very bright and fun festive red, and then there's a variegated sort of speckliness that is based on sort of greens. So we've got that very festive red and green going on. And the two colours, actually, the red I had dyed before. I knit a pair of socks 2 years ago, actually. I looked back on my Instagram and it was 2 years ago that I knit the socks, and I wanted a particular shade of red and I couldn't find it anywhere, so I dyed up a red, and luckily I made a note of the two dye shades that I used. So I've recreated that red, and I think it's actually even a bit brighter than when I did it before. And then to go with it, I wanted like a sort of variegated-y, lots of different tones of greens with a bit of woodsy colour going on. So there's some browns and some golds. So it could be interpreted as autumnal, but also very festive with the greens. So I'll show you the two yarns. I mean, you'll see them again in a minute, but here they are skeined up. That red is very red, isn't it? It's not quite as glowy as that in real life. Just lovely. And I just cast it on straight away. And at first I thought, right, I'll do socks. And then I'm like, no, I'm going to do...
That, I see Santa's suit.
Well, I've dyed a similar shade before and called it Santa's suit. And it almost was that. But I won't tell you the names. You'll find out the names when you watch me dye it.
Yes.
But it's actually the red that's in this mad jumper,
yes,
I think.
We should have said earlier, there is no pattern for this.
No, this is a bought jumper.
This was a bought jumper. And if you imagine, you know those jumpers that you get in small form that you hang on Christmas trees?
It looks like that.
But in human form.
It's a bit bonk. I'm not sure I'd wear this out of the house at the moment. It's
jumper lady.
It's very bright, isn't it? And it's got these huge balloony things going on, which I mean, it's fine. I feel like I'm wearing like a festive duvet at the minute. It's very thick. I don't do duvets. No, we do duvets actually, but wool duvets. Anyway, I transgress. Yeah, so 2 yarns. I thought at first I'd do socks and then change. I thought, no, I'm not going to do socks. And I've recently finished...
In 18... How long?
What?
I've never heard you use the word transgress.
Really?
Sadly, what you meant to say was digress.
Did I use the wrong word?
That doesn't matter.
I did mean to say digress.
It was still stupendous. I love it how, you know...
You see, that didn't sound clever when I used the wrong word, really.
It sounded fun, though. You know, that's what I love. I love in a relationship.
What would you use transgress then?
If you do something bad.
Ah, okay.
I transgressed.
Ah,
oh,
right.
Dear.
No, this is not that.
Yes.
I digressed. Not going to do socks. And I've had a bit of, like, itchy fingers in terms of...
Literally.
Not literally. Oh, no,
Not like me when I started using Lilopy.
Did it make it itch?
It did. I had a problem for a while.
Oh, right. You got used to it.
And my hands went a bit red.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I think it was a mixture of getting used to it and also just changing the way I knitted a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, so I didn't have a cowl on the needles, which for me is like unusual. Cowls for me are kind of a bit like socks. I just love knitting cowls, and I love wearing them as well. And I finished one, which I'll show you later. So I hadn't had one on the needles for a couple of weeks. I thought, right, I'm going to knit a cowl, and I'm going to stripe these yarns, and it's going to be a bit bonkers and just lovely, and I'll wear it at Christmas and it'll be really festive. So that's what I've done, and I'm loving it. I've never knit a cowl like this before, so it's really fun. So look what I'm doing. Oh, how festive does that look? And the red now, it's not quite so in your face, is it? It's really festive. So I'm knitting just a simple cowl, but I decided to do 2 row stripes of the colours, and it's just working brilliantly. It really is
perfect.
And I love the green. The green is so nice. You get lots of pops of, you'll see the greens that I put in there, but there's some brighter greens that go in, and you do get little pops every now and again of really bright green, which I think is lovely. It's
such a lesson for me in how you utilise yarn properly.
Yeah.
Because that red, too much of it is too much.
Absolutely.
But
with that,
like this, it's perfect.
It looks great.
Or cuff seals and toes, it's perfect.
It would look perfect as that, yeah. I wouldn't do a hat all in this red. I think it would be a bit much.
You'd have to do a massive white fluffy pom-pom for the top.
But you see, then that would be brilliant.
Yes.
And now I really want to do it.
See?
You see, if you did it with a white brim, red hat, white pom-pom, thinking about that now, aren't I? Yeah. So I've done a 2x2 rib, but I've done it broken. Because with cowls, I like the rib to sit flat. That's the wrong word. I don't like it to suck in. I want it to be the same width as the body of the cowl. So I tend to do ribs that have like a broken aspect to it. So it's 1 round knit to pale 2, 1 round plain knitting. And then what that does, it allows it to stay flat to you get the same tension basically, is what I'm trying to say. And once it's blocked as well, it will block perfectly evenly. And then I'm just striping 2 rounds. I'm just alternating every 2 rounds, just carrying my yarn up, which is simple as anything. And I love it. And I think it's just going to be the best, funniest thing to wear, you know, over the very close to Christmas time, I will wear this. So just a few days before Christmas and maybe a couple after. It'll be so festive. So yeah, I'm loving it. So that's the yarn you will see. You'll find out the names right now, really.
Yeah. I mean, I just, as soon as you cast that on, it just was like, yes. And there's so many elements, I think, that it's the hardest thing, I think, with knitting. You know, you get like a perfect skein of yarn, and I struggle with this. It's like how you put it all together, because I think each of us has a different skill, I think, when it comes to knitting. I mean, some people have got it all, but I think that's a rare thing, because you'll quite often see a new cast on and the yarn might be wrong. Or the design might not be quite right.
Yeah, for the yarn.
You know, there's so many, and I'm rubbish at this. You know, I'm probably 150% better than I used to be, but I think it's definitely the whole colour selecting.
Yeah,
is quite challenging, because it's like I said a moment ago, that is such an exciting red. You would just think, oh yes, you know, you've got to do more, and I think sometimes it's really hard, isn't it? And I think some designers struggle with this too. Less is more quite often.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And it is difficult to sort of rein that in sometimes, because you know, as a designer, you're like, oh, yeah, you might want to just throw everything at something. But you've got to know when it's the right time to not do that, you know, and just hold back on something and save that for something else.
Do you know, the analogy which immediately springs to mind is cooking. Because in cooking, you know, you can make something and you can throw 50 flavours in there. 50. I love the taste of all of this.
Yeah, but together it'll be awful.
It's vile.
Yeah.
Because sometimes too much is too much, and it just becomes a mishmash of like, and it must be hard actually as a designer. How do you rein it in? I mean, have you ever been in that position before where...
I just tend to get a feel. I couldn't tell you what that is. I just get a feel. If something's right, I'll know it's right. If it's not right, I know, generally.
I think...
I don't know what that is or what you describe that as.
You see, to me, the two words that scream out to me, first of all, it's subtlety. And then immediately from there, then, I go to classy. To me, subtle style is classy.
Yeah, timeless. I like
Yes.
things that are sort of timeless.
Yes. It's easy, isn't it, to get
This
sucked
jumper?
in. Yeah,
Not
timeless.
so much. No, not so much timeless.
But you see, sometimes, and this is why the world is such a great place, isn't it? Because if ever there was a time to say, forget timeless, forget classy, let's just go full on,
I know,
joyful, festive goodness.
If you want one of these, did I get it from Next?
No, I know where you got it from. Let me check.
Are you sure?
Let me check. No, I was right.
Oh,
how do I have this brain?
Where did I get this from?
Sainsbury's.
Oh, it's from Sainsbury's, everybody.
Yes.
Go and get one.
Well,
maybe not.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. You might be looking at me thinking, what are you doing wearing that?
No, but also...
Or you might be thinking, that's fabulous, I want one. I am not an advert for
Please
Sainsbury's.
do.
I am not in no way advertising Sainsbury's because we've kind of fallen out with them recently.
Yeah, but that's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story.
I'm thrilled though now because there will be people who look at this and think, oh, that's lovely, I'd really like
Yes.
one. Sainsbury's is where you get it
Off
from.
you go, everybody.
Look, that's enough of a preamble.
It's also too big, but anyway.
Who's ready for one final My Favourite Colourways?
Yes.
This was a show which was conceived and designed at the height of the COVID pandemic. And we would never have guessed that it would grow into the sort of huge, important part of what we've done for the last few years. And so it's with, a tinge of sadness, but with also a huge dollop of excitement.
Don't be sad.
No, don't be sad.
Nothing to be sad about.
We'll talk about that more later on in the show. But yes, with a tinge of sadness, a huge dollop of excitement, it's time for us to delve one last time into the dye books as we join Kay for My Favourite Colourways.
Over the last 7 years, I have created hundreds of gorgeous colourways. Hidden away in my library is the little book that contains nearly all my secrets. These are the recipes for creating all of my colourways, and in this series I'll be showing you some of my absolute favourites. I'll be taking you from undyed skein to finished colourway, because it's time for us to discover Welcome everybody to what is the final My Favourite Colourways for this year. So because we are almost at the end of the year now, I thought it would be appropriate for us to do a little bit of festive dyeing today, so that if you want to get your hands in the dye pots, you can dye up some yarns in preparation for knitting something Christmassy in December. So what I'm going to be doing today, in all honesty, it's a little bit of winging it. You'll be used to that by now, won't you? Because one of the colourways I have dyed before, it's a couple of years ago, I'll tell you about that one in a minute. But the other one, I found an old colourway that I dyed up ages ago and I really liked it, but I wanted to tweak it. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm tweaking something that I have dyed already, but I'm changing the dye method and I'm adding in some different colours. So really it is something it is completely different, let's be honest, to what I've done before, because I have more or less changed it completely. So I haven't practiced that one. I thought it would be fun to just do it together. We've done that before and it worked out really well, but I think it's sort of fun for me as well to see how it turns out. So the two colourways that we're going to be doing today, I'm going to do a variegated and then I'm going to do a tonal that it doesn't pick up on any of the colours that are in the variegated, but the two themes are associated, and I'm sure, just thinking about the colours, pretty sure they're going to look really lovely together. So the variegated colour that we're going to be dyeing today is called the Workshop in the Woods. So now you can interpret that really however you want. You could think that it's Santa's workshop in the woods, or you could just think that it's a cosy cabin somewhere tucked away in the woods that, you know, either you aspire to live in, or maybe you already live in something like that, which would be amazing. So that's going to be the variegated. So just imagine for a minute what colours that might be in your head, and then you can see whether it's the colours that I've also picked out of that image. And then the second colour, the tonal, is actually something that I dyed more or less exactly 2 years ago, because I had a particular colour in my head and I just couldn't find it anywhere. And I just thought, I'm just going to try dyeing up that colour. So I did, and I knit a pair of socks. I knit a festive pair of socks 2 years ago in that exact yarn. And it was just so pretty. I just remember it. It's always stuck in my head. I thought it would be perfect to go with this one today. So I sort of kept it tucked away. So that one is called A Cozy Sleigh Ride. And to me, it's the absolutely perfect festive red. So it's going to be a gorgeous red tonal, and then we're going to have the variegated with all of those kind of woodsy colours in. So I think the two together, in the way that I'm going to knit them up, I have already got a project in mind, and you will have already seen that actually in the show. But I think they will go together really well, and I think it will just be really festive and lovely to have a go at some Christmassy dyeing today. So that's what we're going to be dyeing up. I've got my dye book and we've got everything ready, so let's have a look at what we're going to need. So first of all, we're going to need our dye pots. As always, I've got my trusty stainless steel dye pots that I always use. With all of the sort of pots and pans and spoons and everything that you use for your dyeing, only use it for dyeing, because the dye powders are toxic. So once you've used them to dye your yarn, then only use all of your equipment for yarn dyeing. So I've got my stainless steel pots. You just want some nice roomy pots. I've got my plastic just washing up bowl that I use for soaking and I use for rinsing. I've got my citric acid, which is the mordant that I use. The mordant is the chemical, the substance that actually makes the dye permanently adhere to the yarn. So I use citric acid because it's user friendly, it's non-toxic, it's actually a food product, and it's easy to store, easy to use. I've got my big spoon. Yes, I do need my big spoon. I was just trying to think whether I need it. I do need my big spoon today. I've got my rubber gloves, mask of course, something to protect your work surfaces. So I've got a piece of oilcloth and some old tea towels that I just used for my dyeing. I've got my recipe book, and then the yarn. I've got 2 skeins today. I'm going to do a skein of each because I'm purely dyeing these to knit this particular project that I've got in mind. So I'm just going to do 1 skein of each. You could put 2 skeins in each pot. I've done that quite often here on the show. So if you wanted to do that, if you wanted one for you and one for a friend, you can put 2 skeins in the pot at the same time. If you're going to do that, I would just increase the amount of dye. So I would double the amount that I'm going to use today if you've got 2 skeins in your pot. I'm just going to use 1. So I've got 2 skeins of fingering weight here. It's the 85-15 base that I really like. So it's 85 superwash merino, 15 nylon. I really like this one. It's a 4-plied yarn, really nice and round and plump and soft. So 2 skeins on my lockable cable ties already. And then the dyes. Quite a few dyes today. I've separated off the 2 dyes for the tonal, so we'll come to those in a second. But for the variegated, now I may not use all of these, we're going to see how it goes. But I'm definitely going to use tan bark. Tan bark is from Landscape Dyes. I really, really love Landscape Dyes. I've used these very often. So this is tan bark. It's like a deep chocolatey, barky sort of colour, really great brown. It's a lovely brown. We've then got gold ochre. Now, it couldn't be the last show of the year, could it, without me using some gold ochre? So I've had to sneak some of that in there. So jacquard, gold ochre. We've then got a Dharma dye. This one is sour apple. So it's Dharma Dye's sour apple. This one is like the outside skin of a Granny Smith. If you just think of that, that's the sort of colour that is. A lovely bright green. And we then got two other greens. I think I'm going to use all of these greens, but I'm just going to see how it goes. So the other two greens are from jacquard, and I've got spruce. I don't think I've ever used this colour with you, and to be honest, I very rarely have used this. But for this particular colourway, it just seemed appropriate. You know, spruce trees in a forest seems perfect. So it's like a deep conifer, you know, like the sort of evergreen tree. It's that sort of colour. So it sort of leans slightly on the blue side, I would say. But it's a lovely foresty green. And then the last one we've got is another jacquard, and it's brilliant Kelly green. So this one is a really bright green. So I wanted to combine that deepness of the spruce with like a more bright green, because you do get a lot of variety in forests with the greens. Even if it's like an evergreen forest, you will still get differences in the green, and I think it will lift it. We don't just want really dark colours. I want some of that richness, but I also want to lift it with a bit of brightness. So we'll see how that all goes. And then for the tonal red, it's two shades of red. These are both jacquard. We've got fire red, which is a fantastic red. Imagine fire engine, it's fire engine red. That's exactly what it is. It's a really bright, vivid, clear sort of red. Beautiful. And then I've got scarlet. I mean, looking at the two colours just on the outside of the pots, scarlet leans, it's not as deep and intense as fire red, and maybe it's got more of a slightly pinkish shade. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pushing it with that really. It just looks like a sort of lighter shade of it, but the two together make the most beautiful red. So that's everything we're going to be needing today to dye up our yarn. The first thing, as always, we've got to do is to soak the yarn. Okay, so in my bowl I've just got not very much water actually, because there's only a couple of skeins. I always try and use the least amount of water that I can. So warm water from the tap, and I've put in a tablespoon or so of the citric acid, and that's dissolved straight away really because the water's nice and warm. So I'm now going to pop in my two skeins. You'll have to sort of coax it down because wool naturally just wants to repel the water. And then just leave this to soak for a good half hour. We want that citric acid to go into all the fibres of the yarn and really soak it through. So I will leave that to have a little soak while I just get everything ready over by the stove. Okay, so in my pot here I've got just about a third full of water. I don't want the yarn to be really sort of swimming around in tons of water. I do want to sort of slightly contain it. So I've only got about a third full there, and I've dumped in another tablespoon of the citric acid. And that's really getting nice and steamy now. So I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit on it, and then I'm going to pop in my skein of yarn. So I've squidged out the bulk of the water, and then I'm just separating out the strands a little bit so it doesn't clump when we put it in the water. And now as I drop it in, I'm just going to move it around. I want to, as we did with the last colourway actually, this is very reminiscent of that. We just want to move around the yarn to get as much surface area as we can, because this first layer of colour that's going in, I'm only going to do one layer. I'm not going to sort of move it and do another. So I'm just sort of pulling up bits from the bottom so that we get different areas of the yarn with this first colour on it. You just want to make it really as random as we can. That's the aim of all this moving around. It's not an exact science by any means, but we do what we can. There we go. Let me just turn that up a little bit, the heat, because when you put the yarn in, it will lower the temperature. So just turn up the temperature and then we can put in the first layer of colour. Okay, so we're going to start with the tan bark, which is the landscape dye. You can see it's a gorgeous, rich, it looks like soil actually, doesn't it? Lovely, like a woodland floor. So I'm going to grab a nice sort of full eighth. This is 1/8 of a teaspoon. That's the measure that I always use. So we've got a full 1/8 of a teaspoon there. In fact, that's probably a bit much. There we go. We'll see how that is. We can always add a bit more. And I'm just going to go in and sprinkle it over the whole surface of the yarn. Just randomly. Doesn't matter if some bits get more than others. It's fine. That will be enough, I think, actually, looking at that. And then I'm just going to use my spoon just to push it down a little bit, because although we don't mind having speckles in this, it is a variegated, so we want it to be more kind of a wateriness of colour, if you know what I mean, watercolouriness of colour. That's really bad English, but you know what I mean. There we go. So now I'm just going to leave that be for about 5 minutes or so until that colour has completely set. Okay, so that's nicely set now, and you can tell if you just get your big spoon and just go into an area that's got quite a lot of sort of saturation of dye, just press it down, lift it and drop the water back down, and you can tell by the colour of the water, you can see that's pretty much clear. We don't mind a tiny bit of residual, but we want the bulk of it to have absorbed in. We're just going to move it a little bit. You know how I like to move my skeins around. Now I'm not going to move it a lot because I do want some of the next colour to sort of mingle in with the brown, but I also want it to have its own little areas as well. So just lift up your yarn, and you can see there is a bit of colour in there, that's fine. And just move it just a little bit. Maybe 1/4 of your length of skein, and then just drop it back in. As you drop it back in and move it around, it will just absorb the remainder of that dye. So at the minute the skein is sort of got areas of that brown, and then it's got a few areas that are still quite white, and then the rest is this sort of gorgeous, soft, sort of fawny colour. So now we're going to pop in our next colour, which will be our gold ochre, and I'm going to go with a sort of flat 1/8. It's not heaped, just flat 1/8. Same thing, sprinkle it over and go for, I'm going all over, but I'm going to go for these 2 areas here that are quite white, and then over the brown. So I'm going to go on those areas first, and then I'll go over the rest, because adding the gold will change the colour of that brown, which is what we want. We want it to do that in some areas, but in others we want it to just have its own little moment of glory. Same thing, push it down. Oh, it's just, isn't it lovely, this colour? So now can you see we're getting these sort of lovely, it looks very autumnal at the moment, doesn't it? But we're going to add in those greens as well. So I suppose actually you could use this as an autumnal colourway as well. So I'm now just going to give that a few minutes just to let that gold layer set. Okay, we're ready for the next colour. So I'm just going to rearrange this a little bit again in the pot. Now for this next stage, I'm going to do, oh, doesn't that look lovely? The brown and the gold together. It's really nice. For this next stage, we're going to introduce all of those greens. Now I'm going to do something slightly different this time. So I've moved that around, and you can see I've still got some of the gold peeking out, there's still some of the brown. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to layer on the 3 greens, one on top of each other. So we're going to start with the spruce, and then we're going to do the Kelly green, and then we're going to do the sour apple. I'm just going to put the powders one on top of the other, and then I will push them down a little bit, because what I'm hoping that does is it'll create its own shade of green by doing that, but then we'll also get those other greens coming in. So first of all, I'm going to go with the spruce. So I'm just going to do about half of an eighth of each of the colours. So I'm just going to sprinkle them over, as we've done before. So that's the spruce in, and then the bright Kelly green. That spruce is lovely in there actually. It does definitely have a blue hue to it. So same thing, about half of an eighth, and on top of the spruce. But it will find its own little areas as well. And then the sour apple. And this is the sort of lightest and brightest of the 3 greens. About half of an eighth over the top. And then now I'm going to take my spoon and just push it down, just a little bit, just to allow those greens to mingle a bit. Right. Lovely. So I'm going to leave that be now, because we've put 3 different colours in there, 3 different dyes. Probably take a little bit longer just to set, so give it a good 5 minutes or so and then come back and just check in. Okay, we're going to give this a move and then put in the final layer. So let's have a look what these greens look like. Oh, it's lovely. It is very woodsy actually, isn't it? And you can see the different shades of green. It might not be coming up on camera at the moment, but I have got some intense green, and then I've also got brighter shades as well. What I'm going to do this time as well as I move it is I'm going to move it first of all like that, and then I'm going to just give it a turn like that. Because what that will do is it will expose the sort of underside of the yarn up to the top, so we'll get more of an even distribution through the skein. So back down into the water. The greens look lovely actually. If you like green, this skein I would say is definitely for you. We don't mind if we put more green on top of the area that's had some green. We just want a nice bit of, you know, the rest of the yarn too. Right, so we're going to repeat those 3 greens. So we're going to start off with the spruce again. Same thing, about half an eighth all over. And then Kelly green, same thing, about half an eighth all over. And then the last one, the sour apple. Okay, so now crank up your heat, get your spoon, and again just tap that down a little bit. There you go. And then leave that be, and that's actually the last layer now. So as soon as that comes up to a nice sort of simmering temperature, as soon as you start to see bubbles appearing, which we're nearly there actually, you can turn the heat off, take it outside and just pop it to cool down. So that's our variegated, beautiful, woodsy colour all dyed up and cooling down. I can't wait to see what that looks like when it's all dried. So come back in part 2 when we are going to be dyeing up that beautiful red tonal. So I will see you back soon.
Oh my goodness, that looks stunning. I love it. And you were so scared.
I was.
Look,
I was.
Confession time.
I was really worried.
Confession time. I did chop out the majority of the bits where you expressed concern about how this was going to turn out.
Right.
Because I didn't want anyone going into this thinking, oh no, this might not turn out nice.
No, only because...
I wanted to make you look like the ultimate professional.
I know. The only reason I was worried is because I hadn't dyed that exact shade before. I based it on something I had dyed before.
Yes.
But then I just added a bunch more green into it, and I don't think the other one had brown in. I'm not even sure. But I based it on something I'd done previously, but I'd never actually done that version before, and I changed the dye method slightly as well. But I absolutely loved how it came out. You know, the technique of layering those 3 greens, one on top of the other on top of the other. Fantastic. And it just, as you saw, it's just knit up so beautifully.
Yes.
So I was really pleased.
And we've still got the gorgeous contrast to come. Wait till you see the dye touch the water.
Oh, it's amazing, yeah.
My goodness.
It's like one of those things that you just want to watch again and again, just watching the dye go on the water.
Makes me think of chemistry when I was at school. Bunsen burners and disastrous experiments.
Goggles.
Broken beakers. And
Bryony hated those goggles.
I never liked them either.
No.
I always had like marks on my face after they'd come off.
Yeah, Bryony's the same.
Look, there's some gorgeous things to see here.
Yes.
So I think it's time for me to say, Kate Jones, what's off your needle?
I've got 2 things,
wow,
which is fun. The first thing is I've finished Bryony's birthday mittens.
These are the business.
Bryony's just had a birthday, 17 now, everybody. So yeah, I finished these. She's worn these already to school, which was fine. I said you can wear them, I just need them on that day when we film. So she's gone off in another pair today.
Bryony's, of course, our daughter, and as you may have caught at the end of the last show, we mentioned that there was some things that perhaps had happened in her personal life, which were quite exciting. And if you want to learn all about those, go and listen to our most recent radio show, which we put out last Friday.
Yes, it's all good.
Yes.
Yeah, so mittens finished. Look at these. Aren't they fantastic?
I love them.
And
I would never have thought that they would look as sort of stylish and cool, just with that simple.
My nails look quite good with them, actually. It sort of matches, doesn't it? So this yarn was from Spectrum Fibres. If you remember, I showed it you last time, and the colourway is called Bryony's Nails. So I had to get it, and she hasn't actually. I don't think we've got a nail polish that colour. I'm going to have to try and hunt one down. But yeah, she's loving them. She's worn them already. So I had a DK, and I had some of the alpaca and silk fluffy lace weight stuff. So I doubled those and then knit a fingerless pair of mitts, and they came out lovely. And look, I did a bit of a ribby thing. I'm obviously in the ribbed zone. So yeah, I put in this like little ribbiness into it, and they're fantastic. She loves them, which is brilliant. I didn't even get a chance to block these. These haven't been blocked. I don't think they even need it.
No.
She's worn them. It's fine. Yeah. You know.
Perfect.
She loves them. So they're all done, and I've got plenty left to make another pair. So at some point, there will be another pair, I think, on the go there.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'll turn that into some of my house socks, the floofy house socks. Yeah. Cozy reading socks, those ones. Yeah, that'd be lovely. So they're all done, and she can have those back now. And then the other thing I finished was the cowl that I've been knitting at bedtime. Do you remember this one?
Wow.
How pretty has this turned out?
Gosh.
It's just lovely.
Where's the yarn from?
This is yarn that was in my 50th birthday calendar from my lovely friend Sarah. Sarah, look what I made. So this was just a few of them. There's 10. I used 10 of there were 10 gram minis, so I'd used 10 of them in this cowl. Yeah, so again, this is a really simple cowl, but just a joy.
Yeah.
So I did this was like a mistake rib, it's called. It was a 2x2 rib, but it's offset, so that it produces this really nice rib. But again, it doesn't suck in very much, which is why I like it for a cowl.
Yeah.
And then I just knit my way through 8 of the minis, and then I used a mini top and bottom for the ribs. And it's just the prettiest thing. I haven't worn it yet, I've saved it to show you, but I just really, really enjoyed knitting it. I had cast it on the beginning of middle of the summer. It was the beginning of August, and I finished it a couple of weeks ago. And that wasn't any sort of rushed knitting at all. Yeah, I know, it's a bit crazy, that yarn, isn't it? But actually, can you remember I moaned about this yarn, didn't I? This one here at the top, and what it was doing. But actually now I'm quite fond of it. I quite like it. It's
not what she said before we started filming.
No, I never said that. It's trying to make you believe something that's not true. it's kind of become a little friend, this randomness of this naughtiness that's happened here with this one. I think if it had been brighter colours, I'd have been like, whoa, no, can't do that, ripping it out. But because it's quite subtle, I don't mind it.
As a brick.
It's not. What's he like? And the rest of the yarns, I really love all of them. Gorgeous. I love this one here. Can you see this one? I couldn't tell you what they are. A lot of them, Sarah didn't know either. It said unknown on it. But, you know, that makes it even more of a joy. It's like, oh, it's like a little bit of a mystery, isn't it? I don't know what some of these yarns are, but they're all beautiful. So this cowl will be making a reappearance some point next year. I'm not saying anything other than that, but I have plans to involve it in something.
Cool.
Which will be fun.
Look, forget that. We want to see how you create this gorgeous red contrast colour. So without further ado, for one last time, let's head back to the dye pots and the final part of my favourite colourways.
Welcome back everybody to part 2 of my favourite colourways. We have dyed up our gorgeous Workshop in the Woods variegated yarn, and we're now ready to dye up that gorgeous tonal red. Oh, I absolutely can't wait. I remember knitting this up and I literally loved every stitch of it. It is the most beautiful colour, so fingers crossed I can recreate it. So let's get back in the dye pots. Okay, we're on to our beautiful red tonal. Now, although I know the 2 dye colours that I used before, I didn't actually make a note of how much I used. So, what I'm going to do is I'll put some in and then we'll put the yarn in. If it's not intense enough, we're going to add some more. So I've got the 2 reds, I've got fire red and scarlet, and I'm going to use equal amounts of the 2. So I'm going to go initially with about 1/2 and 1/8 of each. Just dump it in. Look at that, everybody. Is that not amazing? It's the most beautiful red, that fire red. And then 1/2 of the scarlet. In that goes. So get your big spoon and give that a good stir around. I've got this time in my pot, I've got probably about 1/2 full of water because this one's a tonal. I do want it to have space to move around. So it's about 1/2 full of water, and again there's another tablespoon maybe of citric acid in there. So we want those dyes to completely dissolve. Because this is a tonal, we don't want sort of speckles if possible. If you get the odd speck, it's fine. Okay, that's nicely stirred in now. And I'm just going to grab my yarn, drop it in. I can use my big spoon just to ease it in. So we can squidge out. Okay, get your big spoon and just drop it in fairly rapidly and move it around in the dye as we, just to make sure that all of the strands get in there fairly quickly. And then I'm going to just lift it up, give it a little move. There we go. Drop that back down. And then just keep moving the skein around until all of that dye has been absorbed in. It shouldn't take too long at all, a couple of minutes probably. And we'll have a look at the colour. So that's literally just a couple of minutes and you can see all of the dye is pretty much absorbed. So let's have a little look at it and see what I think. My initial thought is that it's maybe a tad pinker than I remember it. So what I'm going to do is turn the skein over like that. You see how I flipped it over like before. So yes, I'm just going to add in a bit more fire red because to me that's looking a bit pinker than I remember it. So all I'm going to do is grab some fire red, maybe another 1/2. So what I will have put in there is proportionally there's more fire red than scarlet. So I'm just going to lift up the skein, drop in that fire red. Oh, that was fun. Give it a stir. And then we can drop the skein straight back down. And then straight in. That looks better already. That looks more like the colour I remember. Give it a good move around again. Get that dye in as quickly as we can. Because we like it to be tonal. We don't want patches of really paleness is what I'm trying to say. Oh, that looks glorious now. So I'm going to have another little look. Can you see now it's a much more intense red. Perfect. So now we can just raise up the temperature. Oh, it is already up actually. Yes, I've already turned it up. And again, just let that come up to temperature. Now with red dye, I will say, reds can be a bit tricky in terms of sort of bleeding and things. I do always make sure when it's a red like this that I really set it sort of super well. So bring it up to temperature, and I maybe even raise it a little bit higher in temperature terms than I normally do, because I generally don't like to boil my yarn, and I won't boil this, but I'll just make sure that it really is, you know, hot, and that we're really setting that dye as well as we possibly can with it being a red. And then as soon as we get to that point, I will pop it outside with the other one to cool down. Okay, so our yarns have cooled down now, so I'm ready to rinse. So I've got a bowl of just sort of lukewarmish water in there with some wool wash. I'm using Eucalan this time with lavender. Use whatever you've got to hand. So I'm going to put in the variegated skein first, and it's just come out lovely. I love all the greens that are in there. So we're just going to drop that in and just give it a little wish around. So we're rinsing out the citric acid, and we're also just getting rid of any sort of loose dye particles and giving it a nice soak. The wool wash will also, it might sort of lightly fragrance the yarn as well. It just depends on how strong the fragrance is. So you can let that hang out there for a bit if you want, if you've got something to do for 10 minutes, but I tend to just, as long as it's had a nice sort of swim around like that for a few minutes, that's generally fine. And the wool wash is non-rinse, so we don't have to worry about rinsing. Give that a squish. So that's our variegated skein. And I'm going to use the same water because it's pretty much clear. There might be the merest hint of murkiness in there, but it's fine. So I'm going to drop in the red, so let's see if we do get any bleeding. The pot is completely clear, so that's a good sign. So let's pop that in. Same thing. Just give it a nice swim around. Looks good at the moment. It's a gorgeous red, isn't it? So looking at the water in there, you can see it is pretty much clear, so it doesn't look to me like we do have any bleeding, which is brilliant. So we've got a good set of our dye. And again, just squidge that out. So it's quite a cold day outside today, so it's not very good drying weather outside. So I'm just going to squidge it out fully on the line outside, and then I will hang it in the house in front of a fan to dry fully. So our beautiful yarn is all fluffy and dried and looking fantastic. I'm really pleased with the way that this variegated, I say variegated, but I mean, and it is variegated, but it also looks very sort of speckledy as well. It's really pretty. We've got all of those greens, which are just gorgeous. We've got the dark spruce and then the brighter shades, and then we have got some of that gold coming through, and then here as well we've got the brown. So it's just lovely. And the red, of course, is, oh, I just absolutely am mad about this red. It's just so gorgeous. And I think the two together are very, very festive, aren't they? Which is exactly what I wanted. So I'm going to skein these up now, and then, oh, I can't wait to cast on. I was just thinking in my brain then, did you see the cogs whirring? I was just thinking about what it is I'm going to cast on. You will already know because you will have seen it. So I'm not going to say what's in my mind just in case I change it. But you will have already seen that. But the two are going to work together in whatever project it is. So let's skein these up now. And we'll see actually whether any of these ties have come off, because recently I've had a few ties come off during the dyeing process. So let's see. These ones I think look okay. What do they call that? Thwack, do they, in the spinning world? All I'm doing is, can you see you get these longer strands? It really bugs me that. I don't know why that happens. I think it's just in the kind of tying up of the skein that you end up with a slightly longer strand. Now let's find which tie it is that's holding everything together. Is that one there? Because it's got the 4 strands coming off it. So that's the tie that's holding it all together. So I'm going to have that at the top. And then there's just 2 others on this one, so I'm going to snip this one here. So it just leaves 2, kind of one at the top and one at the bottom, which is how I like to sort of store my yarn. Although this is not going to be stored, it's going to be wound up and cast on, which is what yarn is designed for, isn't it? I know it's tempting to hoard yarn, isn't it? And I do hoard yarn, but really, come on, let's cast these beautiful skeins on. Right, I'm going to skein this now. Yep, 7. Oh, it's lovely. Perfect. So I'm going to skein up the red now, and then we can take a closer look. So there we go. There's our 2 gorgeous festive skeins. We've got a workshop in the woods. Oh, lovely. And a cosy sleigh ride. With this colour, the reason I called it that is 2 reasons actually. One is that if you're going to have a sleigh, I expect it to be a nice festive red, but also when you get into the sleigh, I kind of imagine there to be a blanket, this colour, maybe edged with, like a white fur. Oh, I'm thinking, does that make me think of Narnia? No, it doesn't really, does it? Because everything's white in Narnia, isn't it? But that feel, that's the sort of feel that I got with this colour. So the 2 together, the 2 are going to be in a project together, and I think they'll just be gorgeous. I mean, red and green with gold in there as well, and that little bit of brown. It couldn't be any more festive, I don't think. And it just turned out lovely. So the experiment worked, yay! So I hope you really enjoyed that. Oh, I've got one thing to show you actually. I dug out the socks that I knitted with this colour. I told you that this colour I dyed a couple of years ago. And these are the socks that I knit with the colour. So it is just 2 years ago. I look back on my sort of Instagram feed and it was November from 2020. I can't believe time just goes so quick, doesn't it? But these are the socks that I knitted at the time. Now, these have been worn hugely by Bryony, so they are not looking at their best. But that's brilliant, isn't it, that they've been worn so much and loved. And I don't know if anybody remembers these socks, but I put in these little lace Christmas trees at the top here and sort of changed the colours slightly on the second one. But these have been through the washer like I can't think how many times, so the colour has faded slightly, but still being worn. And I think this was a sparkle base actually I used for this one, but it is the same base, but it's got sparkle in. And there's, the wear factor is pretty good, although they faded a little bit on the bottom, where they've been worn. Still pretty good for 2 years on. So that's the socks, that's our beautiful yarn, all finished. So I hope you might have a go at that, or if not, go to your stash and see if you've got maybe similar colours. You might have, you never know. So that is actually now the final episode of my favourite colourways. But do not fear everybody, because it's not the end of the yarn dyeing. Yarn dyeing will be back next year, but what we've done is, because we're very aware that not everybody has the time or maybe inclination or supplies or whatever to actually dye their own yarn, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be combining the yarn dyeing. So there will be yarn dyeing, but also there's going to be a new exciting element that anybody that's got some yarn in their house can actually join in with as well. So that's super fun, very exciting to look forward to in 2023. So for now, thank you all so much for joining in with my dyeing journey. I hope you really enjoyed that, and I will see you back next year for something very exciting and new.
Now that's what I call some gorgeous colourways. Oh yes, and we've already seen how amazing they look knitted up.
Yeah.
Just perfection. Such a festive feast of fun and frolics. It's just marvellous.
I don't know what's going on with Dan today.
I can't stop.
Just don't know.
I feel like I've been invaded by a DJ.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
It's the perfect way to go out in style. And now is the moment. Kay's already said a little bit at the end of the show there, but please do not fear. In fact, do the opposite of fear. Be excited, because what's been so wonderful for us has been to sit down and go, right, okay, we can now take everything that we've learned from that show and we can conceive something completely new. That's what Kay's done. She's conceived a show which we're very conscious of the fact that many of you have got no desire to dye. And so what we've done is we've created a new show which, yes, has an element of dyeing in it, but also has an element of something else, which I can guarantee you're all going to love.
You will.
And what we're also so excited about is we've learnt a lot about filming over the last 2-3 years, and you know we've been having production meetings about this very show, and we're so excited to be able to bring a whole new sort of approach to filming Kay shows. It's going to be the biggest production show you've ever fronted on your own.
Yeah, definitely.
Very exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. So
you know, for someone who, you know, when I think back to when we first started, you were very self-conscious and very nervous about these types of things.
I still am.
You still are, but you've developed, you know, well, I'm so excited about next year.
Yeah, it's really exciting. So, you know, there will be dyeing. There'll be plenty of dyeing yarn. Plenty of dyeing yarn, but lots of other things going on as well. It's going to be so fun.
I often find myself in such a dilemma because I absolutely love producing Walking the Wall, and I'm so excited about the new thing we're doing, but I do find myself feeling so at home when I'm the other side of the camera and work. You know, it's just a joy. It's a joy to film and work and pull things together with you. So just you wait till you see it. You're not going to believe it. Oh yes.
I think you're going to really like it. I'm really enjoying doing the thing that you will all be doing. Anyone
who loves music from my talented brother, fear not.
Yes.
Yes.
Lots of that too.
Lots of that. Oh yes. Cool. Look, it's time for the Endy Bits.
Endy Bits.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are on the countdown to, yes, the Bakery Bears Advent Calendar 2022.
We are deep in that zone.
In 2015, we thought for a bit of fun we would produce a few videos, 24 in fact, from the 1st till the 24th of December. We thought, oh, you know, that'll be easy enough.
How little we knew.
Over the last 7 years, this has grown into, by far, our most popular. People love this.
Love it.
Last
and we
year,
love it.
We do too.
We love producing it. We love coming up with ideas and
Well, look, last year we gave things a bit of a facelift, how things looked. This year, things are changing again. And they're changing because what we've done is we've taken that sort of grand approach that we've done with Walking the Dales and Walking the Moors and my favourite colourways and Kay's Cosy Kitchen, that big production approach, and we've applied it to the advent calendar. And for the first year ever as well, it's going to be a themed advent calendar.
Yes.
And sitting at the heart of that theme, at the centre of that goodness, is Kay's first platinum pattern of 2023. And everyone who is a patron on the 24th of December will receive that pattern as a Christmas gift from us. So everyone, that collection, as we said earlier on the show, is normally only available to gold and platinum patrons. Not on the 24th of December, baby. No. Every one of you who is a patron will receive that pattern. But before all of that, anyone who is a silver, gold or platinum patron will get to join Kay in a mystery knit-along.
Yes.
As she knits through that very design.
Yes.
And you've never designed anything quite like this before.
No, I really haven't.
This will blow the doors off.
It's, I'm really, do you know, when I came up with this idea, I thought, I'm going to do that. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. But do you know what? It's just been a joy. And I've actually knit my way through 3 of the items now. And I've just loved every stitch of every one.
How that design has become the theme for the whole of our advent calendar.
Yeah, from that design, because I
comes lots of other things. And then that sort of morphed into, actually, shall we expand the theme into the whole of the advent calendar? So that's what we've done. But the thing I wanted to mention, actually, because an email has gone out now to all our patrons. Because yes, whilst it's a mystery knit-along, you need to know what you need to knit it.
You need to know what supplies you're going to need.
Yes.
So, I don't tell anybody what the design is or give any hint at all.
No.
But I do send out an email telling you what yarn you will need and what needles you will need, and the gauge as well, so that you can do a swatch and be ready. So the yarn actually for this year's is a DK weight yarn, or you could use worsted if you wanted to. But the yarn I used is this. I used the blacker. So I'll just...
But you don't have to.
You don't have to. No, you could, because it's quite expensive.
We've already had messages of people panicking that they can't get it.
No, I did say in the email, you can use whatever yarn you want, as long as it's a DK or a worsted.
Yes.
So, but I just chose to use this because I love it so much and I can get it, and it's a beautiful yarn. So I used this, the Black Swan DK.
What we've done actually is we've made this information open to everyone. So everyone, if you want to, get a sort of hint of what's going to be happening from the 2nd of December is when you cast on. If you want to get a hint of what's going on, everyone, so non-patrons as well, you can go look at the post that's linked to the show notes below. Kay goes through every possible element of the yarn requirements.
I hope so. I've tried to cover everything that anybody could ask me.
You did. So it's all there. So just go take a look.
Yeah, so you need 3 colours of a solid yarn. So, there's so many choices for DK and worsted weight solids, I think. Cascade 220 would be a great one. I know that's worsted, but I've actually used that, and I would say that it's DK worsted. So, lots of options for you.
And all your questions are answered in that message. In the message. That's open to everyone.
That you can all go and read if you're interested in that.
Look, Sockoween. What a month we had.
Sockoween!
And now it's time for prizes.
Yes, the Sockoween has ended and it's just been fantastic. We've absolutely loved it. Yes. So Sockoween will return next year.
Yes, it's an annual event.
Absolutely, because it's just been
just
brilliant.
Like our advent calendar. It's an annual event.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. And I love that it's been quite a short burst of something.
Yes.
Because it's just, you feel like, because it's just that month, you feel like you can really throw yourself into it.
Yes.
And you won't get weary of it because it's just that month. And it's been amazing. So I closed the thread now. We had 203 entries on Ravelry, and then we had a few emailed entries as well. So I random number drew from numbers 2 to 207 And I've got 5 prizes. I've got 2 yarn prizes and 3 pattern prizes.
Let's do it.
So I will go with the pattern prizes first. Let's work upwards, shall we? So the 3 pattern prizes, so 3 people, I'm going to send you the quadrophenia pattern, and I'll do that today actually. I'll send that through today just in case you happen to buy it in the next sort of day. So I'm going to send those through today, but I'll let you know who those 3 people were. So I thought you were going to say something.
So the first winner is?
The first winner was number 139, and that is Mad Ninja Hooker, and that's Melissa in Ohio.
Woohoo! Congratulations, Melissa.
Second winner of the pattern is number 70, and that is Cape Nedick Knitter, and that is Amy in Maine. I think Cape Nedick is an area of Maine.
Congratulations, Amy.
And then the third prize winner of the blanket pattern is number 26, and that is Domic, D-O-M-I-C, Domic in Germany.
Congratulations.
So
woohoo.
Those 3 people, I've got your Ravelry names there. I will gift you that pattern through this afternoon, so Brilliant. You will have it. So the other 2 prizes are yarn prizes.
I shall hold.
So we've got the first one is the Malabrigo sock that I showed you before. So the skein, oh sorry Johnny, the skein of Malabrigo sock has been won by number 44, and that is Val AW on Ravelry, and that's Val, and she's in the Wirral in UK.
Congratulations, Val.
So over sort of Liverpool way.
That's on its way to you.
Yeah. And then the, I suppose, biggest prize is 2 skeins of yarn from me. So it's both of these skeins, and these have been won by number 157, and that is the Muggle Knitter, and that's Nicole, and Nicole is in Australia.
Congratulations, Nicole.
So
this yarn is going to be travelling many miles.
I know, Australia. So Nicole and Val, if you could email me, email address on the screen, with your full name and your postal address, I will get those winging their way to you.
Brilliant.
So
Ladies and
thank you everybody for taking part.
Perfect. What a wonderful way to finish the show.
Yay!
My goodness. And as we've said many times today, now is the build-up to the most wonderful time of the year. So much so, in fact, that I can't quite believe I'm saying this. With a bit of luck, in the next show, well, there needs to be more than luck, it has to happen, you will see a trailer for this year's Baker & Bez Advent Calendar 2022. So on that happy note, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, everybody.
And we will see you in 2 weeks for more.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Sitting and knitting, Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. Enthusiasm's not quitting for Dan and Kay, the bakery bears. They'll take you to fabulous places of which their favorites they'll share. You better buy a pattern and get yourself a bakery bear. You'll find yourself in a castle while watching the bakery bears. It never feels like a hassle to sit and watch the bakery bears. What's on your shelf or what's in